Yeah. Are we gonna? We win. All right, we're on.
Hey, oh my goodness. Hi, hello to anybody out there, and certainly hello to you, Mr. Shawn Buttner. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Sherry. And
It's been
hello
a
to
while
everyone.
since we've done the hard stuff is okay, and today was the perfect timing for me. How about you?
Mm. Yeah, I'm feeling like there's a lot of. There's a phrase in our mutual world of honor the struggle as a certified high performance coach. And man, has there been a lot to honor in the last month, I think, for both of us. So,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. And let's just take a moment for anybody who's watching now or who might be watching this later. If you're going through something hard, here we are, right? Shawn and I are dedicated. It's not always on a regular rhythm, but we're dedicated to showing up to make space and to normalize that hard stuff, right? And I don't think probably this is a surprise to anybody because Shawn, you were just saying this. We just got off of a group that we coach, and Shawn was just saying it feels like it's escalated in certain ways. Certainly in my circle, it sounds like in yours.
Hmm. Yeah, we were talking about how like this is the year of the fire horse, and fire is very destructive. And man, have I seen that just in my immediate circle. Personally, I had a friend last week. He had a literal fire at his house. He's a firefighter, and uh, at the end of his shift, his house burned down, or that didn't burn down completely, but like, so it's been all this stuff. It's interesting in the personal life too. There's been a lot of things that have started with fire, like
Really, Shawn?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so like the theme is very literal in my immediate world. And how do you like the good thing about fire is it's cleansing and it allows for new beginnings. Like you think of like the forest cycle here in California, like that clears out the undergrowth for new trees to grow. And so part of my coping mechanism is just trusting that this is clearing out all the cruft. But and among other, you can't just hope. There's things you got to do, but it leads to the question like, how do you honor the struggle, right? When it seems to be when you're in it or when it's all around
Yeah. 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 And I know like what you just pointed to was something that we've talked about quite a bit. And I think it's worth repeating again, which is this like balancing act, right? Of like, there's a balancing act of honoring to me, honoring the struggle, like allowing myself to let the feelings move through me, right? Like
you.
not to
Hmm.
push things down, not to be like, Pollyanna toxic positivity. So let the feelings come. But you also said something in our last call that we just came from, which was, but also keeping that balance of like, I don't think you said it this way, but I heard it like not drowning, like letting
Hmm.
them come, but not getting just like totally pulled under the undertow. So I'm constantly trying to kind of move things through me, but also not get pulled under. It's not
It's
easy.
tricky.
That's
Yeah.
tricky.
I think of it kind of like you have a sink with hot and cold spigots, and you have all the negative stuff that's like cold water or maybe whatever works for you. And all like the like positive emotions or hot water. And like I think if you go one way or the other, it's toxic positivity, it's toxic negativity. I think that's not a word, but like,
Yeah.
but the whole group of the hard stuff is okay is when it's trying to get the mixture to where you can live your life and not scald yourself or freeze yourself, you
I
know?
love that. You're such a good, I love it. You're always a good metaphor, like on the spot metaphor guy. It's a great, um,
Yes, it worked this time then.
it did. And yeah, I really love this, and one of the things, I know, I wanted to read this little thing that,
Oh, yeah, yes.
yeah. So one of the ways that I'm coping, I'm someone who has like a lot of like rah, 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 monkey mind. My son named it Squawky Polly, which I think is perfect. Just squawking, and none of it nice. And so my spiritual teacher suggested that I read things out loud, when that's happening to overwrite the negative. And one of the things I started reading is called The Way of Transformation. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the first little part, but you'll get a sense. And it's something that I think is speaking to what we're talking about. And it's by Carl Fried Durkheim. Those who, being really on the way, who fall upon hard times in the world, will not, as a consequence, turn to that friend who offers refuge and comfort and encourages the old self to survive. Rather, they will seek out someone who will faithfully and inexorably help them to risk themselves so that they may endure the suffering and pass courageously through it, thus making of it a raft that leads to the far shore. And I'll stop there. But to me, this speaks to, for instance, the friend who's like, oh, it'll just all be okay, or don't worry about it, or, let's just talk about something else. There's that. But then there's the friend who says, okay, let's be with this, like Shawn's saying, like, where is this going to take me? What is this fire going to clear out painfully to come forward? And I think there's a hopefulness in that, right?
Yeah, there's a hopefulness, and there's also, you have Squawk and Polly in there. There has to be an answer, right? I think, what's the answer? And the answer, when you're sitting with it, is gotta be tied to hope or change or transformation, or if you think you're going to be stuck in this forever, like that's the most, like, I think honoring the struggle is not getting stuck in the struggle.
Yes.
I think it's really saying, like, it's hard now. I can get through this. I will get through this. I don't know how. I don't know in what shape. I don't know in what form, but it will happen, right? Time, it ticks up, whether we want to or not. And most things, and maybe your experience is different, but most things with time come and go, right? This too will pass.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, Shawn. I love that, reminding ourselves, because I think one of the things that when I talk about the undertow is those voices, those negative voices that are saying, it's done, it's over, it's always going to be like this. You thought you were da da da, and it's so debilitating. Whereas, like what you're saying, and I think, I love that that language of the raft that leads to the far shore. So they're saying it's the far shore. I mean, it's not, sometimes it's not like, oh, I see the shore, but it's the idea that I trust the process. I think that's part of it, right? Yeah.
I trust the process. And to continue with the water metaphor, right? With the dark undertow that pulls you out to sea, there's also the fun waves on the surface that you can ride on towards the shore, And having done a little bit of surfing, like, you will get thrashed in the water, like you might, it's both, and it's not just the dark undertow. It's not just the fun surfing part. It's like, you got to deal with both when you're on a surfboard, and be aware of both when you're on a surfboard if you want to get back to the shore.
I love that. And it reminds me, I was actually crying on the phone last night with a friend, and she's someone who really has shown up in my life during this really hard period. We weren't even very close before this happened, but she sort of just showed up and has been steady. And I was saying to her, and I think this might be the surfing part, I was saying, like, wow, this terrible time has brought me you. Like, and she's not the only one. I feel like I've gotten closer to you, Shawn, through this. Like, I feel like part of the honor the struggle is remembering, or not even remembering, but bringing into the light both, and right, that it's not just that deep grief, but there are so many connections that come unexpectedly sometimes that
Hmm.
are I was talking to a complete stranger the other day and just happened to say to her something about grief, and she met me there with her own world. And then we were saying like what a joy there was in,
Hmm.
instead of us having this very surface level conversation, just meeting, we just like dropped into it. It
Hmm.
felt so connected.
Hmm. Yeah. How did that shift the conversation for you? You're coming in with grief. They are coming in with grief. You acknowledge it. Like, what happens after that moment of mutual recognition?
What a great question. And I'm so excited to be talking about this because we had this kind of um I her work is joyful improv, right? And of course, my
Okay.
company is Simply Celebrate. So
Hmm.
when we first set up this call, it was months and months and months and months ago. It just took us a long time to meet, but like neither of us were in this grief space. But anyways, when we came together and I said, listen, I'm just going to be totally transparent with you. Like I know we connect on joy, and right now I just got off the floor crying, and
Hmm.
I just want to be honest with you. And I'm saying, I'm not going to burst into tears right now. I've got it, under wraps for the moment.
Hmm.
Um, but we ended up having this amazing conversation about grief as improv, because
Mm.
it's like anyone who's ever, I don't know if this is, I think for most people I've talked to, grief is just a wild beast. It doesn't knock on the door and say, is this a good time? Can I come in?
Right.
It really is. It forces us into an improv of sorts.
Mm.
And so we ended up having this fascinating conversation about that, which we probably never would have gotten to otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh.
And I think it also establishes, well, like we were saying on our previous group when we were, Shawn and I always do another group previous to this, and then we debrief here. And in that other group where we were saying it creates a sense of safety when everybody's showing up with transparency, because
Hmm.
then there's a certain safety. Like I'm not all alone, and I'm risking something, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be accepted.
Yeah. It's more risky if someone is like, hey, my life's perfect. I'm nailing my career, my personal life, everything. And now you're dealing with this. Like, it's a weird dynamic that shows up. I've experienced it. I've been the instigator of it, I think, sometimes unwillingly. Like,
Oh, interesting.
um, looking back of just wanting to be optimistic and cheery and like you were talking in the other group too about the power of intention,
Yeah.
right? That was the book. I mean, what you focus on grows, right? And so if you're focused on the grief or you're focused on what you're feeling and how agonizing it is, that'll grow. Or you focus on something else like puppies or rainbows or something much lighter and happier. Like, you can shift how you feel by shifting your perspective. Um, and it's that weird thing of like that can get really toxic really quick, or that can be very dismissive really quick when you're not really present with the people around you and talking about that kind of stuff. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, and I think it can be really the same thing, even if it's just with us. Like,
Hmm.
I think the main word that you just said was presence, right? Like, I
Hmm.
feel like it requires, and thankfully, I've been a meditator for 35 years, so I'm kind of used to paying attention. But I have to really pay attention in any given moment. Is this, in my practice, we say pain versus suffering as a way to distinguish. Is this an authentic pain? Like, is this just in the moment, grief is arising?
Hmm.
Or is it suffering, which is often attached to a story? It might,
Hmm.
and if it's authentic pain, I think it's really helpful to let it move through me, right? Cry, move, whatever, talk to somebody. But if it's that story, then I have to pay really close attention. You know,
Mm-hmm.
am I fanning that back to the fire? Am I fanning the fire of this story that's making me feel worse? I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it really requires some discernment.
It does. And the time you need to discern is usually at your weakest moment, you know? Right?
Such a good point. Which is why I think it's really helpful, like to have people in our lives who understand emotional intelligence, right? Like we were talking in the group earlier, like the time to line up your support system is way before something dramatic happens, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that you can, because I've found, um, and you're one of those people that it's like there are people who will say, you know, like, is that a story, right? Is that a story you're telling yourself right now? Is that true? You know, is that
Mm-hmm.
helpful right now? Anything to kind of give a pause so that I can stop and discern, you know,
Mm-hmm.
really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those little nudges that we get being in, we were talking a lot about being in front of or with other people. And that's the magic of that nudge of like, oh, I never really thought, is this serving me right now? And it's not. And like, oh, well, maybe a little bit of curiosity, like that pulls you out of a doom loop that you have in your head, you know?
Exactly. And I've also seen the flip. In fact, just earlier today, I was talking to someone and I could hear a bubbling up of emotion, like tears were at the surface. And I could tell that she was pushing it down. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I simply said, like, hey, you know, if you think it'd be helpful just to say a few words about that, please. And it ended up being like one of those things that you and I were talking about earlier today, that it's like sometimes just getting it out is
Mm-hmm.
helpful, you
Yep.
know? So it can work both ways, right? To pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
somebody and to kind of sense like, you know, maybe they're feeling a little embarrassed or they don't think there's room for what they're feeling, and making a little
Mm-hmm.
space for it can help.
Yep. A little space can go a long way, you know?
I know. And I realized that talking about space, we're a little bit at our time. But one last thing I just wanted to say that was so helpful that came up was that idea of nervous systems and how we can help each other's nervous systems by reaching out. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my friend Candace gave me that term co-regulation, and how we can help each other co-regulate our nervous systems simply by connecting. And I think that's super important to remember, not to isolate, not to hide, as much as many of us seem to turn to that. You know, that seems like a
Mm-hmm.
really viable option much of the time.
Yeah. As a card holding, like, introvert slash turtler when it comes to emotions. That's the term I use. Like I
I
turtle
love
up.
it.
Um, it is nice to, yeah, be able to have people you can confide in that you trust, that have your back and your best interest and won't judge you for
Yeah.
being a hot mess if you're a hot mess, or for being stuck when you're stuck.
Yeah.
And that's
I,
the whole idea of the hard stuff is okay, is that idea of those bittersweet moments that are very connective, you know?
yes, yes, yeah. And I found that sometimes if I'm in, this happened to me yesterday, I kind of came up a little bit out of the undertow. And there were
Mm-hmm.
some people I'd been avoiding because I was hiding. And
Mm-hmm.
I just quickly, you know, left a couple voice messages that said, I'm fessing up. I'm in a very bad place. I've been hiding because I'm embarrassed. And that's all. And everyone reached back and said, do you want to have a call? You know, like nobody
Mm-hmm.
said, thank you for hiding. I'm so glad you,
Right.
I'm so glad you didn't like bring that to me. So to your
Mm-hmm.
point, right? It is very connecting. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's always one of the beautiful places we keep coming back to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I, I love it. So,
Thank you. I feel it now, Shawn. I feel it now. Thank you. I feel connected to you, and I'm so grateful. And anybody who's watching or watching later, so grateful that people are willing to show up for this kind of conversation.
yeah, likewise. I appreciate you so much, Sherry. And thanks for all the folks that are still here with us. So,
Yay. Yay. All right. So we'll see you next time.
you got it. Yep.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.